The line of control, nestled in the mountainous terrain of Kashmir, has long been a scar on the face of South Asia, an ever-tense boundary soaked in history, conflict, and sacrifice. On a cold February night, as snowflakes melted on steel helmets, and rifles, Captain Zarar Khan of the Pakistan Army stood vigilant at the Rakh-e-Shamali forward post. His eyes, sharp as the falcons of Waziristan, scanned the distance through his binoculars. He had felt this silence before, the kind that hums in the air just before chaos erupts. Zarar was no ordinary soldier. Decorated twice for valor, he came from a family of warriors. His father, Major Asif Khan, had embraced martyrdom during the Kargil conflict. His mother, a schoolteacher, had raised him with tales of sacrifice, honor, and the sanctity of their motherland. For Zarar, Pakistan was not just a land. It was a legacy to be protected at all costs. Behind him, his unit of 28 soldiers prepared quietly. Ammunition was checked. Radios were calibrated. Young faces bore expressions of calm determination. Among them was Lieutenant Adnan, a newly commissioned officer full of energy and trust in his captain. "Movement, sir," a soldier called softly. Zarar raised his binoculars again. Faint silhouettes moved across the ridge. Indian soldiers. Their formation was scattered, undisciplined. Zarar noted their overconfidence. They believed Pakistan's side was sleeping. They were wrong. "Hold fire," Zarar ordered. "Let them come closer. Let them taste our silence before they hear our storm." As the Indian unit crept into what they thought was a vulnerable patch of the border, Zarar gave a quiet signal. His men readied themselves. No one panicked. No one blinked. The first Indian shell dropped 10 meters from the trench, a warning shot. The second was closer, shaking the earth. Then came the third. It screamed through the air and exploded directly on a rock wall, raining debris. That was the cue. "Positions," Zarar roared. Like shadows, his men moved. Snipers took the higher rocks. Machine gunners readied their barrels. Mortars were set. Within 30 seconds, Rakh-e-Shamali was alive with the hum of disciplined fury. "Now," Zarar said, and hell was unleashed. Pakistani bullets cut through the thin morning mist, finding their targets with deadly accuracy. The Indians returned fire, but their chaos was no match for Zarar's strategy. Within the first 10 minutes, the invading squad lost 7 men. The rest ducked behind rocks, pinned. Lieutenant Adnan, bleeding from his arm but still grinning, ran up to Zarar. "They didn't expect a welcome party like this, sir." Zarar allowed a small smile. "They thought they came to hunt, but we are the lions here." As the firefight raged, one Indian officer tried to flank the left trench. He was met by young Bilal, the youngest in the unit. Barely 19, Bilal held his ground, firing 3 clean shots. The officer fell, but a grenade rolled near Bilal's position. "Grenade!" someone screamed. Bilal, without hesitation, kicked it back. It exploded mid-air. He was thrown back, unconscious. Zarar rushed to him, checking his pulse. "He's alive," he confirmed, relief flooding through him. "Get him to the medic tent." The Indians began to retreat, but Zarar wasn't finished. "Push forward," he ordered. The platoon surged, reclaiming every inch of soil. As the sun rose, its light fell upon a field littered with Indian equipment, weapons, and their fallen arrogance. Zarar stood at the highest ridge, raised the green and white flag of Pakistan and let it wave in the wind. "This is our land," he whispered, "and no one takes it from us." Back in Rawalpindi, GHQ buzzed with updates. The successful defense of Rakh-e-Shamali had stunned military analysts. Captain Zarar's name was being whispered with reverence, his photo silently pinned on many walls of admiration. Meanwhile, across the border, Indian generals scrambled to salvage their bruised pride. The Indian media twisted the narrative. They blamed the loss on weather, faulty intelligence, and technical errors. But behind closed doors, a darker reality emerged. Operation Tiger Claw, a large-scale infiltration plan, had been exposed and crushed by a numerically inferior yet tactically superior Pakistani unit. India's humiliation grew. Under pressure, they launched a second operation, this time larger and deadlier. Hundreds of soldiers would be deployed across 3 sectors. Air support was greenlit. Their goal, to capture and occupy Pakistani posts to use as leverage during diplomatic talks. But Pakistan was ready. ISI had intercepted key intel. Zarar and his men knew they were in the crosshairs again. "We will not just defend," Zarar told his commanding officer. "We will dominate." He drew up detailed defensive plans, coordinated with artillery units, and trained his men in guerrilla techniques suited to mountainous terrain. His belief in strategy was only matched by his faith in Allah and his nation. "Captain," Adnan asked one night, "if they bring everything they've got, can we still hold?" Zarar smiled. "We are not just holding ground, Adnan. We are guarding honor. They'll bring fire, we'll answer with faith." On a cloud-covered dawn, Indian helicopters soared over the ridges. Chinooks dropped commandos while Mirage jets struck from above. The air shook with the roar of war. But the Pakistani Lions were already positioned. Anti-air guns roared to life. The first Indian chopper exploded in midair. The second dropped its troops but couldn't escape the hail of bullets. Ground forces, thinking they had the advantage, advanced quickly, only to find the terrain booby-trapped and their paths choked with machine gun nests. Captain Zarar moved among his men like a ghost, appearing where morale was needed most, directing fire and pulling the wounded to safety. Lieutenant Adnan and Bilal held the western trench despite facing 3 times their number. Junaid, another brave soul, intercepted a flanking maneuver by crawling through a tunnel and unleashing grenades directly into the enemy ranks. The Indian assault stalled. Confusion took over their ranks. Their officers were either killed or too scared to command. Indian drones showed live footage of soldiers hesitating, falling back, or surrendering. In just 12 hours, over 100 Indian soldiers were either captured or eliminated. What the Indian military hadn't realized was that Zarar had studied guerrilla warfare deeply. He had trained in northern Pakistan's roughest terrains. He knew the mountains like his backyard. He launched night raids on enemy supply lines. His men used silence as a weapon. Pakistani snipers picked off Indian soldiers one by one. Soon Indian troops began refusing to advance at night. They whispered of Zarar, the ghost who never misses. Fear replaced aggression. In a war of morale, Pakistan had already won. After weeks of fighting, India called for a ceasefire. But Pakistan set its condition: complete withdrawal and accountability. During talks, Indian diplomats claimed Pakistan had used irregular forces and cross-border tactics. But when videos leaked showing Indian forces attacking civilians and fleeing the battlefield, global opinion shifted. Pakistan's Prime Minister addressed the UN. "We have not waged war, but we will not let our soil bleed. Our soldiers do not fight for land. They fight for justice, for peace, and for the honor of our flag." Captain Zarar and his unit returned to a hero's welcome in Islamabad. Children waved flags. Old men saluted. Women showered flower petals. The nation had found its symbol of resilience. He received the Nishani Haider, the highest military honor. Standing at the podium, Zarar said, "We don't celebrate war. We mourn every loss, even of those misled by their leaders. But let the world know, when Pakistan is threatened, every soldier becomes a lion, every ridge becomes a fortress, and every flag becomes a flame." Months passed. Peace held, but Zarar never relaxed. He often returned to the mountains, visiting the graves of the martyrs, walking the same paths his brothers once bled upon. He knew war might return, but he also knew so would the lions. And as the wind howled through Rakhe-Shamali, it carried with it a tale of bravery, strategy, and unmatched courage. Long live Pakistan.